Hi, everybody. My name is Daniela Cohen, and I'm the founder of Transformative Conversations. And I'm here today with Val St. John, the Executive Director of the BC Association for Community Health Centers, also known as BCACHC. And Val partnered with me to co-create and run a pilot program called Reimagining Service for Women Healthcare Leaders. And we had 8 women, different leaders of community health centers across BC participating in the program. And Val's here today with me to offer her reflections, both as a co-creator and organizer of this program and as a program participant herself. So thank you so much, Val, for being here today.
Thanks, Daniela. Happy to participate.
Yeah, and I'd love to start, Val, just by asking you what motivated you to co-create this program with me, and what are the challenges that you've seen that women in healthcare have been dealing with that made this feel like an important initiative for BCACHC?
So I think my main motivation was around the recognition that the women that I work with in this context of community health centers, they work in nonprofit organizations, and they're leaders that very often do not have access to support programs, leadership education programs, because of the nature of nonprofit funding. So there's a gap there that I thought that this program could be designed to fill, and also the fact that women in healthcare, who make up the majority of the healthcare workforce, have different issues and different experiences in the sector, that it seemed valuable to offer an opportunity around sharing. And the other element of the focus of this program was the fact that when individuals move into the community health center sector or healthcare in general, they usually have a shared value set that they haven't even identified themselves. And being able to recognize that value set and the shared experiences, and then the challenges, looking through the lens of those shared values in the health sector, was sort of an interesting angle for me to sort of have a window into with the conversations that I anticipated we would have during this pilot program. And then the challenges of, first of all, leadership in general was something that I've always been interested in focusing on and finding ways to support solutioning, as well as finding ways for leadership development. And so being able to work with you to sort of develop and focus a program that would deal with these kinds of aspects was very, very interesting to me.
That's amazing, Val. Yeah, thank you. And I think you've touched on some really important points. First of all, like working in nonprofit, the lack of funding, the lack of resources, and therefore the lack of support for women and for leaders in the space, and also the point of women actually making up the majority of that workforce. And how do we create a space where we can explicitly articulate the values that are driving us, come together to share our challenges, and actually provide that space of connection and support for each other? So I love that. I really love that. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm kind of curious if you want to say any more around how the program fit with BCACHC's broader goals around supporting community health center leaders and advancing equity in healthcare.
Right. So our BC Association of Community Health Centers supports currently 45 communities and community health centers that are operational around the province. And the model of service delivery for community health centers, being nonprofits or cooperative organizations, is very much grounded in community engagement and community needs, which means that the leadership role for one of these community health centers is a really kind of diverse, multitasking kind of a role, embedded in community, but also focusing on providing programming for very often the most vulnerable members of our population who don't have easy access to healthcare and social determinants of health services, or who have had bad experiences with the larger system and therefore don't seek healthcare when they need it. And so the challenge of this service delivery model and of all the practitioners in this model when working with the most vulnerable in our communities and across our population is different than what you would find in acute care, say, for example, because of how the patients present and who the patients are very often, and their experiences with the broader system. And so it's a very trust-oriented kind of a space that takes time, because trust takes time to develop, especially when trust has been broken. So it's a demanding service delivery model in communities that are very often facing fairly significant challenges. And so having the ability through this program for the women leaders to come together and talk about those things, to share those experiences, has been extremely valuable to not only learn from each other, but to feel less alone. And and there's been a lot written on leadership and how it's lonely at the top, right? Well, it can be particularly lonely in certain kinds of organizations, right, that are really trying to do the hard work that is very people centric. And so so I saw some really interesting outcomes during our pilot that has me thinking about what's next, right? Because BCACHC, we're a member-driven organization. We provide a lot of different education services, advocacy supports, trying to get different funding with the provincial government for the community health center programming, as well as community engagement toolkits and all these kinds of things that you would expect a supporting association to provide. And just to be able to dig into this one particular service delivery area for our community health center members was a really great opportunity.
Yeah, and I think what you've said is so important, especially
Mm-hmm.
when we are focusing on vulnerable populations, and there's a lot that goes into that work. And I think also
Mm-hmm.
a lot of investment emotionally required,
Yes.
right? To be able
Yes.
to do that work. And so sometimes it feels like we're holding everybody else up as the
Yes.
leaders to be able to
Yes.
make that work happen because we care so deeply about that work. But
Yes.
then there is like, where is the space for us to come together and be able to really authentically share those challenges, to feel like we're not all alone.
Yes.
So I think that's such an important piece of this. And just to really, I think it also helps to strengthen our leadership when we can get that support, right? So we're not kind of sitting
Mm.
isolated, feeling like I'm just carrying the world alone on my shoulders.
Yes. Yes, and I mean, and our association provides a sort of a network model, right? We connect the leaders in the community health centers to each other, to learn, and we connect the clinicians in the community health centers to each other as well, to learn and to share and to sort of co-create solutions. And so that network model is really important. To continue to build and strengthen those relationships of people who are not only like-minded and of similar values, but who are also struggling with the same kind of issues, and being able to actually get some real solutioning, because you've developed that network, you've developed that relationship amongst the others that are your peers in the same context, is a really great opportunity. And I know that's valued by our members across the association.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just the connection, but who you're
Mm-hmm.
connecting with and people that are dealing with
Yes.
similar challenges. But then also what you're
Yes.
saying in that context, like connecting different people in different roles, right?
Yes.
So that everybody's talking to each other and we're not working in silos.
Yes. Yes. And the health sector is extremely siloed. I mean, it is I would suggest it is the most complex sector to work in, because of all the different interests right? In the sector, every practitioner brings their set of interests. Every patient has a set of interests. Every region has different interests, whether you're urban or rural or remote. You have numerous types of illness, numerous types of specialties. I mean, the complexity is quite amazing, and one day is not like the next day or the next, and so it is really a space where burnout happens if folks aren't offered the ability to access supports that protect them and recharge them, and so that that's part of my headset in this space around this program as well, um, is that capacity and that resiliency building, which is so very necessary in this sector.
100% because of all the different levels of complexity and then holding all of that over a period of time, right? Continuously. It's not like that's just present one day, but it's an ongoing thing that people are navigating.
Yes.
And I'm curious, Val, what did you see as the impact of the program for the women participating individually, but also in how they then showed up in their organizations and their networks? What did you notice about that?
So I've seen a couple of the participants put their hand up to do work outside of their community health center, to work in the broader system, supporting some of the work that our association does. So I think this work has allowed them to feel comfortable with their ability or to recognize capacity within themselves to work at the next level, because system level work is hard. It's hard on the ground day to day, and it's hard at the system level in healthcare. So a couple of the women have put their hands up to do some system level work, which I think is testament to them identifying capacity within themselves to sort of stretch and grow, and that confidence as well to recognize that, oh, okay, well, so I've experienced this, but so did a lot of my peers, and I have the ability to get through this. It's not a situation or an occurrence or a challenge that's happening because of me. It's something in the context of the work that I have to deal with, but it's not caused by me. And therefore, I can look at it in such a way as I'm capable of solutioning it. And this confidence is really, it's a key element in the development of leaders in general, but in the development of women in this group, I think is definitely something I saw as an outcome of participation.
Wow, I love that. And I think that's so powerful because often, and I know I've had that same experience going through burnout, kind of look around and it seems like everybody else is fine. So we're experiencing something. But then we think, well, if everybody else looks fine, it must be because of me, right? The problem is me. And so interpreting things through that lens of there's something wrong with me is really different to being able to step back, and also like some of the work we did unpacking some of those narratives that we hold about ourselves.
Yes.
And being able to break through them and therefore interpret things that are happening in more empowering ways and then step fully into our power and confidence as women leaders. So that's amazing. And I think I love what you said too, because it's kind of like that systems work needs to be done and it is so challenging and we need people to do it. But you have people over here that might be so powerful and capable, but aren't necessarily feeling that way in themselves. And so we're losing out on that talent. But then the moment that these women can step forward and say, yes, I can do this, right, that impacts the whole system. So there's kind of a ripple effect in that as well.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely, I believe so. And I think this is something that is sort of fundamental to a challenge of women in leadership, regardless of the sector that they're in. And I've worked in a lot of different sectors over my very lengthy career. And and when I think about my experiences and the development of my confidence and my capacity, and think of the great peers, and colleagues that I've worked with through the years as well, there is a difference to how women approach things in leadership and men approach things in leadership. There just is. And so I think paying attention to that is important. And it's not, one way isn't better than another. It's just different for whatever reason. And the reason doesn't even matter. So I think the ability to pay attention to that and just to value the differences and build upon the strengths is a really great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's really what the focus was, right? Is the woman-centered approach. So how do we tailor this to the needs and experiences of women? And as you're saying, like, it's so important to be aware of that lens, because leadership development is so important. And there's so many kind of generalized leadership development programs. But I think paying attention to those particular needs of women and the beliefs that we hold that, we've been kind of socialized into over a lifetime, like those are really important to be able to act. And I'm wondering, like, for you, what would you say were the most valuable parts of the program that you saw?
I think building that safe space for the conversations, building that trusting relationship with people who didn't really know each other at the beginning of the program, and seeing relationships that I think will sort of stand the test of time now, which I think is super beneficial. I think the exploration of some of the concepts, talking about coaching and what it is and what it isn't, and experiencing coaching, right? And experiencing the questions that a really good coach will ask, an individual to create the thought process that is helpful and possibly foreign to us as an individual. So that kind of a knowing support, I think, was very valuable. We talked a bit about conflict as well, in a couple of the sessions, because we wanted to bring in some of that thought process for conflict positive organizations, and trying to bring some capacity in that regard, right, into the conversations and the leadership development, and just seeing how the concepts opened up new avenues of thought, and new, I guess, a new awareness amongst the group of how rooted values are in conflict, right? As a sort of as a cause, and being able to recognize, oh, these are the values that I hold. I've never really thought about that. And that motivates my behavior or drives my behavior in a certain way. And it's doing the same thing with my peers and my colleagues and my friends and my family. So having that awareness, which is very often new to people, right? We don't come into this world with our values listed on our arm, right? We have to figure out why we behave the way we do. And very often we don't relate that to the core of our values. And so having that experience together, I think, was really eye-opening for the participants. And I know it took me a long time to go into the values work, right? And really understand, why am I showing up like this? And why am I reacting like this? And so that's a really important awareness for all of us as human beings to have. And I think that was extremely valuable as well. And then paired with the conflict, right? Conflict positive organizational awareness and the protocol process, I think was very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Val. And it's so funny because I remember, I think it was in our first few sessions when I was doing some laser coaching with people, and other people really wanted to say something, right? I want to tell you how you can fix this problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, because as leaders, we're so wired for that. We're so wired
Yes.
to support, like help people find solutions. And it's like,
Exactly.
well, actually, we're sitting in the questions, right? And we're sitting in
Yeah.
the let me go a
Yeah.
little deeper with this and let me find some things that I might not have explored. And
Yes.
from there, the solution will emerge. So I think it
Yeah.
is like a kind of rewiring.
Yeah.
Um, and the same with the conflict positive work. It's like, well, how do I actually sit back and make sure I'm hearing somebody before I jump in
Yes.
with my solution? And as you said as well, like really becoming aware, that level of awareness of like our own stories and our own values and
Yeah.
how that impacts the way we show up.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's
Yeah.
so important as leaders that, if we're supporting others, that we start with that awareness in ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
such a key piece. So, and I know, you were talking, you said it took you a while to kind of integrate the values piece. And I'd
Hmm.
love to hear more about your experience in the program as well,
Hmm. Hmm.
as a participant in the program. So
Hmm.
maybe I'd love to hear, how, when you came into the program, what was happening for you at that time, in your life, in your work? Like, where were
Hmm.
you at when we started the program?
Let's see. When we started, um, I mean, the interesting dynamic for me is I'm the leader of a supporting organization, and the women leaders as participants are folks that I work with. Often some of them were on my board of directors. Some of them, all of them are members of our association. One of them was my staff. So I had a lot of different relationships in that room that I was aware was going to exist. That was going to be the context that I was going to participate in. But it was very interesting for me to to show up, um, as a participant and be vulnerable in front of folks who had these different roles in my professional life, right? So that vulnerability was, um, not something that was initially easy for me. I'm not. I am. Yeah. I am. That's not how I show up usually. So the process, right, of the coaching and being coached, in front of the group, so everybody's learning, right, from the experience, and assessing my reaction was, very different for me. It was a very different experience, and a really valuable one, because it allowed me to examine those different relationships and to find value in actually going beyond the job titles that we all hold, right? Just actually being a person who was showing that um, they needed some of the learnings and some of the experiences that the program would offer the opportunity for, and just being okay with showing up like that, um, given all the relationships that I had held in the room, right? And so that that was an interesting, yeah, and a very different experience. I think that's the first time I've had that experience. Yeah.
Wow, wow. And I think that's so beautiful, Val, because it's just kind of like speaks to the fact that, even though I hold this leadership role and I've got these different relationships, I'm also a human. And
Yeah.
I also have places where I don't feel that strong. And
Yeah.
it's also so good to just be able to share my humanity
Yeah.
with other people, right? And know that I'm going to be supported in that way. And I don't have to kind of put on the face of strength all the time.
Yep. Yep.
So
Definitely.
that's amazing. And I'm curious, like so the vulnerability was one piece of it.
Mhm.
What else shifted for you through the program?
I think one of the things that um, I had a mentor one time, and he said to me, "Happiness is a function of expectation." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right." And then through this program, one of the coaching conversations that you and I had was around some frustration I was feeling because I didn't get the result I expected, right, for some of the communications that I had done. And it caused me, not getting the result I had expected, caused me to think, oh, well, maybe this was the wrong way to approach something, or maybe the communication wasn't clear enough, or maybe like all this doubt, right? All this doubt. Um, and so to be able to sort of work through that in the coaching session with you and have everybody else watching and thinking about, this, my expectation wasn't met. Therefore, I started on this doubt cycle. Um, we had a really cool conversation about expectations
Yeah.
and recognizing that my expectations and my colleagues' expectations are totally different, and we react as a result of that. And doesn't mean that what we have done is wrong. It just means that we 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 had our expectations as our guide or as our measuring stick, and uh, it's not the only measuring stick, really, right? So it was an interesting conversation that allowed me to shift my view of my expectations and think, is this a reasonable expectation to have? Okay, so I need to adjust now. Maybe I need to ask some questions, right? Maybe I need to sort of confirm what I'm thinking, and confirm my assessment and and learn before I throw out the expectation or feel frustrated or whatever. So it was a really good reminder of like that checking in. Just check in, right? My expectation wasn't met. Okay, well, ask some questions of the folks who didn't respond at all or the way I expected them to. So why was that, right? And oh, okay, so what might be better next time, or what might be different, or is it all okay and it's just something that I don't have to be concerned about at this point. But this checking in idea, right? And we don't do enough of that, I don't think, with each other. We react instead. We don't check in. We don't show up curious when something isn't going the direction we want it to. And so I've had experiences since the program, to actually check my own expectations, to ask some curious questions, to try to understand, okay, well, how did this happen, right? Or why am I not getting the result I thought I would? And that is extremely valuable. Um, yeah, it's extremely valuable, especially in a complex system, right? Yeah.
And for you, like what have you noticed has been the impact of being able to ask those questions and check your expectations, check any assumptions? How's that affected the dynamics in your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's deepened the trust relationships. I think because people recognize that, oh, she's going to check in with me because my opinion is important to her. So that's a really great
Mhm.
trust relationship, right? Or you know um, or offering folks the ability to give feedback, again, because their opinion is important to me. And I think we don't often let our colleagues know how important they are to us, right? Or how their work is impacting us, um, and having that the feedback opportunity, um, because life is busy, and we work with email, and we work with Zoom calls or Teams calls. So much is almost impersonal now, and that that sort of reactivation of that connection, that the feedback loops, those kinds of things has been valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's also, I mean, it comes back to kind of how much more power I have when I look at my expectations and can have like a new level of awareness of where I was coming from. I think it
Yeah.
can help break that fear of
Mm,
asking other people for feedback,
right.
because sometimes we're so in our head about what it means about me that I can't ask someone else because I'm
Yeah.
terrified about what they might say.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm like, I actually really want to hear and I can step back from making it all about me and really be open and curious to the feedback, then like you say, I think others also feel that. And then we
Yeah.
can deepen that trust where there really is space to share what's happening from each person.
Yeah. And I think our natural propensity is to take ownership of things, right? This is going wrong. I own it. I have to fix it. Well, that may or may not be the case, right? I mean, some other things we talked about in the program was, well, maybe that's not my monkey, right? That's not the monkey on my back. Maybe I don't need to leap in and solve and fix and worry about it. Maybe really it's an opportunity for somebody else. Maybe, right? It's um, a learning experience for more of the team members. Um, and I think if we give ourselves that time, I had another mentor, and I remember sharing this in the group, and he always used to say, "Give time." And it took me years to figure out really the essence of that and the true value of that. But when you are in a situation and you just take that moment to to think, is this mine to solve? Does this need solving? And maybe it'll solve itself, or maybe more information will surface that will send us in a different direction. So in leadership, very rarely, and I'm in healthcare when I say this, I know, but nobody's going to die in my job
Yeah.
in the health sector. In other people's jobs, yes. But
Mm.
in my job, in my leadership job, giving time is really valuable to see what's going to happen a little bit, to see how things might unfold that could change the direction, to see if it's even a problem that needs solving. So this ownership as a leader, coupled with this giving time, is I think a really valuable capability that we can learn um, if we don't make everything all about me, right? Oh, I
Mhm.
got to solve this. Oh, this is mine, right? Yeah, well, maybe not, right? So that being able to remember that and bring that into the expectation conversation I have with myself and the feedback conversation and the extra time to maybe assess what's going on or see how things unfold. Um, yeah, I mean it's an awareness that has been fine tuned for me, and I don't always have to respond, right?
Yeah,
I don't always have to respond, and that is powerful. Yeah,
it's hugely powerful.
yeah,
I think also because then when you do, there's intentionality behind it, right? So when I
yeah,
do, I'm choosing that, and then it's like, and I'm also choosing the how of that.
yes,
Like
yes,
what's the way and the timing of that, and
yes.
all of those pieces.
And I think
Um,
also you're choosing what you want out of the situation or the resolution. What you, it's like you said, it's that intentionality and given some time, the outcomes that are needed for the organization or for the situation or for you as a leader can become clearer too if there is that time just to sort of work it through a little bit.
yeah, and I think that goes against kind of the urgency culture, and especially in
Yes,
nonprofits, right? Like kind of
yes,
this pressure that we feel like we've got so much more to do than can ever be done, and everything needs
yeah,
to be done yesterday. And at the same time, like if we can take that breath and step back and bring that intentionality, then we can
Mm-hmm.
be more effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also thinking about sustainability. And I'm
Mm.
wondering for you, like, how do you connect these things of seeing what's mine to do, giving time? How do you connect those pieces to like your own sense of well-being and ability to
Mm.
sustain your role over the long term?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's that's an important piece of resiliency. Um, and I don't think, it's almost a badge of honor to be super busy and crazy. But at what point do you give up doing your best job, right? And showing up in the best way and taking care of yourself. At what point do all those things kind of collide and you aren't doing you aren't being your best person, right? And you aren't doing your best work because you haven't developed those um, capabilities or capacities around resilience and around the awarenesses that you need to yeah, do your best work. And it is I don't know, it's that you said urgency culture, and I like that. I hadn't heard that framing
Okay.
before, but very much, yeah, everything is urgent, and no, everything is not urgent. And yeah, it's more food for thought for me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is that piece of like it's kind of counterintuitive to pause, to breathe, to wait. And I think also
Yeah.
for especially for women, it's counterintuitive to think of ourselves, first to
Mm-hmm.
make
Mm-hmm.
sure I'm actually,
Yeah.
functioning well so I can do my best work.
Yeah.
Often we're kind of out there supporting everybody else, and then we realize, oh, we're so depleted, and then we're not really be able to provide that value to others at that point
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah.
there's
Right.
so many layers to it. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that, Val, also about,
Yeah.
your own experience and being so open and transparent about that as
Mm-hmm.
well. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, it helps me to sort of reinforce my learning, to sort of revisit it and go, oh yeah, I said I'd do that. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious what you would say, to another association or network
Hmm.
that was considering
Yeah.
bringing in this kind of transformational coaching program.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Yeah. I'd say that it it has value beyond the sessions, right? Because it's individual focused, which is very valuable, and it helps to build a culture of support in the organization, which shifts the way people show up because they actually feel supported and they feel like they have trusted colleagues that they can chew things over with, and they recognize that capacity in the organization to um, connect with folks to do that shared problem solving, and to have that shared experience around that understanding. And when you go through a program, you end up with a language, right? Which is why professions have a language, right? Because they are educated in the same way in this language. And so it's the same idea. You come out with a language, you come out with a capacity, an understanding from having shared some common experiences and learned some tools, and so it is that culture of support that so many organizations don't have. And so I think that's a really valuable outcome, and I'm very interested to watch how that continues to unfold in my organization and amongst the folks that were on the pilot program.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's
Yeah.
so important, just building that culture of support.
Hmm.
And that benefits everybody, right? It
It
benefits the
does.
participants, benefits the organization, and it benefits the sector that you're
Yeah.
working in and the amount of impact that you can have. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry, you're going to say something.
And I was going to say, we're so evidence-based, outcome-oriented. Um, what's the return on investment? And and sometimes as a leader, it's hard to get comfortable with not having those clear metrics when you spend money. But this kind of a program, you intuitively know the outcome. Um, but it's not going to necessarily tangibly hit your bottom line in a way that you can trace, right? Oh, that outcome saved us $50, right? Or we spent 5,000 and here's the tangible and specific outcomes. You're not going to get that with these kinds of programs in a way that, the finance folks are going to be thrilled about, right? But the humans in your organization are going to get it, right? And they're going to benefit from it. And then so will the patients of, the health center. So will the colleagues, right? As you say. And so I've always had the mind that if you are human focused with how you spend your money, then it's a win-win, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so that's a conversation that organizations have to have with themselves when they choose to invest like this, and know that it's a worthy investment for those intangibles that aren't going to get measured in the bottom line.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that
Yeah.
perspective and really appreciate it. Right? We
Yeah.
need to take care of the people that are doing the work. And that's so important in strengthening the organization, the mission, the sustainability.
Yeah.
And then I would also say there is definitely that tangible bottom line because we know that when people burn out, right? And when people take leaves, there's
Yes.
absenteeism, like all of
There you
those
go.
things cost
Yep.
organizations huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
what kind of money, what kind of profit would it save organizations to have
Right.
a happy, healthy, well-functioning
Yeah.
team that could continue over the long term, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So I
Yeah.
think there's definitely those like very tangible financial returns on investment, even if they're not immediately evident.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember the sort of some of the research on when folks go out, for training, or there's training brought into the organization. One of the um, elements of the organization that has to be present for the training to continue to have a benefit to the individuals in the organization is having the trainees return to an organization that supports their new way of being as a result of the training.
Right.
So if organizations are creating this new culture, then we have to look at how are we supporting these new ways of being. What does that mean? And I know some of the participants in the pilot said, "Oh gosh, okay, so now I want to bring this program to my team, right?" And so already they're thinking, "Okay, how do we support this capacity um, in my organization, and how do I develop that culture?" And so it is, yeah, it's a good conversation for other organizations to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you brought up something so important, Val. And that's
Mm.
actually why, for me, I decided to focus my efforts on leaders and leadership in
Mm-hmm.
organizations because I realized that that culture shift needs to start at the leadership level,
Yeah.
right? And so once leaders understand these concepts and start making these shifts themselves, they can go back
Yeah.
and they can start shifting their organizations.
Yes.
But it's really
Yes.
tough if, people who are not at that level of leadership to affect the change,
Yeah.
experience the change themselves, but they don't really have the power to be
Yeah.
able to influence that change in their organizations. So I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
that's such an important part.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
yeah, and I guess just to say, as well, like creating this network of women to support each other, because
Hmm.
if you do go back into your organization and people
Hmm.
are still in the old paradigms,
Hmm.
then where do you get the support? And so it's so important to have
Yeah.
these connections that can hold
Right.
you and encourage you in that
Right.
support so that you continue to move forward
Yes.
in, the most powerful way that you can.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
that's
agree.
a huge part. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Val, for being here today. It's been really wonderful just to be with you again and to hear your reflections, and everything you shared. And thank you again so much for just taking the initiative to create this. I think it's been such a beautiful experience.
Hmm.
And I'm so grateful to have been on this journey with you.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me how things happen, how new things get developed, right? And how then you have the opportunity to continue on with something new, um, and see where it goes. So I was happy to be absolutely a part of it. Happy to wear the two hats that I wore during the
Yeah.
process, and happy to figure out with you where do we go next, because I think there is a next, and yeah, I'm excited by that. So thanks, Daniela.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love that. And I love the fact, like, even that line, right, there is a next, because I think it just speaks to the work of transformation.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a next, right? And when we're aware of that and we're moving towards it, we just have
Mm-hmm.
this beautiful opportunity for ongoing growth and evolution, both
Yeah.
for ourselves and like the
Mm-hmm.
communities that we're serving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, I just want to say, if you're watching this and you're curious, how can I bring this kind of program into my organization? Please feel free to reach out. You can book a free discovery session with me, and I'll just drop the link in the chat.